How is it going, everyone? It is once again time to break down some Crimson Desert news and updates. Every minutia, every minor detail of this game is being broken down, and I really shouldn't say minor in this case, because I would say that some of the topics that we're going to talk about, particularly the voice acting in this game, is a very relevant topic in today's current climate, but we'll talk about that. Crimson Desert doing a lot to build a lot of goodwill, in my opinion, one of the greatest promotional runs a video game has ever had. But before we get into this video, of course, I do want to give a shout to our friends over at Greenman Gaming, who do have the game discounted 15% off. Use the code FEB15. You'll get a Steam code. It redeems directly on Steam. This is for the PC version of the game. You won't pay tax either. You'll save a little bit, and you'll get one of the most anticipated games of the year a little bit cheaper. But as I mentioned at the top, this may be one of the greatest promotional runs for a video game that I've ever seen. Up there with games like Black Myth Wukong in terms of it essentially being a newer studio to this audience, because there's a significant amount of people that are checking out Crimson Desert and want to play Crimson Desert that have never played Black Desert Online. This essentially could be a new IP from a new studio in terms of how the general gaming audience is perceiving it. The lengthy interviews that Will Powers is doing, the feature videos that they are uploading. This is how you do a promotional run for a video game. I often talk about how I think so many publishers and big-time publishers botch promotional aspects of video games. Well, Crimson Desert has just done it the complete opposite in the sense of nailed it and knocked it out of the park so far. And we already talked about no microtransactions in the game. Alright, that's a big W. We talked about the various content and whatnot, but how about this? The main NPCs in the game are fully voiced by humans as well. During an interview on the Drop Frames podcast, Will Powers did a lengthy interview on there. And as far as the voice acting goes, the main NPCs will be fully voiced by humans. Now, Will Powers didn't want to say 100% because obviously if there's one voice over here or there that's not fully voiced by a human, that would be a problem. But he noted this: I'm not going to criticize other games, but all of our voices are done by humans. I'm refraining from saying that 100% of the NPCs have human voices, because if that's not the case for even one NPC, I don't want the internet to accuse me of lying. But yes, all the main NPCs and those in the side quests have actors' voices. This game features voice acting in different languages as well. So that's a big aspect, especially for an ambitious open world game like this, where it does seem like there is so much detail put in terms of the character dialogue and everything like that, and all of the ins and outs of the various locations. Having the depth to that, and obviously with everything talked about with AI-generated voice acting and anything like that, we all know why AI is here. The end game of AI is to decrease the cost of labor. It is so they can be more efficient in how much money they spend in various aspects, not just in gaming, but in all facets. But obviously, there's a caveat to all of that: what happens to human jobs? But the idea of spending so much money on AI right now, I would imagine the ultimate goal by a lot of these entities is to, at the end game of it, reduce a lot of the labor costs. And yeah, that just sounds like a disaster, and hopefully it won't come to an absolute train wreck like that. But nonetheless, as far as Crimson Desert, as far as the game is concerned for now in 2026, which very much who knows what's going to happen in the future, but for now at least, the game is voice acted for the main NPCs by humans themselves. Moving on from that, we've done a lot of discussion about the difficulty options of the game, and the lack thereof, rather, because there was a note on the accessibility sections on the PlayStation Store page that difficulty settings and modifiers were going to be available in the game. Well, that's not going to be in the game. There is no actual difficulty cap in terms of easy, normal, hard. Rather, the game has a preset difficulty based on the region that you're in, based on the enemies that you're fighting, but there are options to make the game easier. For example, you can get certain gear that's going to be more effective in combat. You can craft items that are going to give you a revive option in the middle of a fight, and guess what? You can craft multiple items of that, so that difficulty scale is actually baked into the game itself. However, this isn't a case where you're just going to be able to over-level by farming enemy minions and things of that nature, because Crimson Desert has no leveling. You won't have to chase experience to become stronger. Rather, this game is incentivizing the exploration of the open world. You'll find abyss artifacts, materials to upgrade your gear, blueprints in the wild, and again, craftables that are going to give you enhancements or that you can take into battle. That's going to make the combat easier if you do want to go into that route. If you want to play the game as I'm good at action games, you can play it that way as well. And in fact, Powers noted something pretty interesting as far as regarding Crimson Desert. If you've heard Pearl Abyss and Powers talk about Crimson Desert, they've refrained from calling Crimson Desert an RPG. When you break down this game from a mechanics standpoint and what the idea of an RPG is in 2026, most people would come to the conclusion that it is an RPG, so why is it not being called an RPG? Well, Powers noted this, saying, with the term RPG comes a lot of connotations around a character creator, specifics like experience points and leveling systems and stuff like that. Those, as players would expect them, are absent from the game. However, there are an absolute ton of RPG elements, so I think that's why genre becomes a really tough thing, because everyone has their connotations with it. And that's true. I think the term of RPG has evolved over the last few years, and if you're taking away leveling from a game, like that core gain XP, level up, okay, I can see why you would want to refrain from calling an RPG. However, you're talking about upgradable skills. You're talking about quest lines, side quests. These are all things that people attribute to RPGs. However, it's more so RPG elements within an action-adventure open-world game, which is pretty interesting. Now, Powers did note that gear is very important in the game, and gear is going to be one of those elements that is essentially the difficulty scaler in the game. If you want a battle to be easier, go get gear. Go get the craftable item that's going to give you a revive in the middle of a battle, and then that will be a little bit easier. However, as far as RPG aspects are concerned, you do have a tool set that'll let you customize the 3 lead characters. It's not a ground-up customizing of the characters because those are set in place, but there will be options for customizing those characters, their horses, and the war robot that you can pilot as well. There are no dialogue choices either, and Powers did emphasize your playstyle will define who you are. There is a set plot, and you choose how you as a character are interacting with the world, which that seems to be the key element that they've been highlighting in the game. The narrative is the core narrative. It's going to unfold how it's going to unfold, but how you interact with this open world, what you decide to do versus what another player decides to do, might be wildly different depending on how much you want to get prepared for a battle before embarking on said quest, or how much that player wants to prepare. And then also, how much of this content that you are going to do, because what Powers had noted is that the open world is a little bit reminiscent of Elden Ring in the sense that when you play Elden Ring, if you've played that game, by the end of it, chances are, unless you are using a guide and you are looking for absolutely everything, you are going to miss a ton of stuff in that game. Think about how iconic of a boss battle that Melania is, and Melania is something that I've talked to so many people they just miss throughout their playthrough of the game, and that's an easy thing to miss. But think about how significant of a portion of content that is. That's the comparison that Crimson Desert was drawn to, where Powers made it to the end of the game and realized, hey, I know the development of this game, I know the content that's supposed to be in this game, I missed some stuff, and then you go and you can do that content, and then, you know, if you decide to have a guide, how you interact with this world is going to be so different from every individual player, unless, you know, you have a guide next to you and you're trying to do absolutely everything. Chances are you are going to miss a couple of things here and there, and that is more in line with, I think, how a lot of people view an RPG. But as far as how you actually define the game, it seems like Pearl Abyss is going the route of this is an open-world action-adventure game with some RPG elements. It's going to be a sizable undertaking, and I think if you're into action RPGs, you'll very much feel at home with this one as well. But that's going to do it for me. Let me know all of your thoughts on Crimson Desert. We are getting closer and closer to the release of the game, just about 4 weeks away. I foresee it being one of the biggest game releases of the year, and it'll be interesting to see if it's in the contention for Game of the Year, because, man, you got games like Grand Theft Auto 6 coming out this year, Resident Evil Requiem's coming out, Forza Horizon 6, Marvel's Wolverine. It's going to be a stacked year with a lot of big games, but how about Pearl Abyss, who, again, I know they did BDO, but for a lot of people, this is going to be their first foray into a Pearl Abyss title with a brand new IP, and they come out here swinging with this monster of a release. But we'll see how it all shapes out. Again, get the game cheaper over at Greenman Gaming. We get an affiliate kickback if you pick it up there. That'll do it for me. Let me know all of your thoughts in the comments section down below. As always, sound off there. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.